I always thought the warnings were just stories. You know, the kind of creepy tales people whisper at parties when the lights go low and everyone wants to feel the hair rise on the back of their necks. The kind of thing that makes you check the lock on your door twice before bed. But I learned too late that those warnings were more than just words, they were survival rules. It started with the sound. The first night I was alone in this old house. The sound came so soft that I thought I imagined it a faint tapping, like a branch against glass. But there were no trees close enough to touch the windows, and it was not the wind. I checked every window anyway, walked the creaking floorboards one by one. And when I reached the living room, I heard it again, but clearer and sharper this time, knocking 3 slow knocks. I froze in the dark, the clock on the wall ticking like a heartbeat, the red digital glow from the microwave shining faintly from the kitchen. It was 3 a.m. on the dot. I swear it was like the universe wanted me to notice the time. I whispered to myself, don't answer the door at 3 a.m., and I don't even know why those words came to my mind, but they did, like some part of me already knew. The knocks came again, louder this time, deliberate, slow, not like a neighbor, not like anyone who needed help. No, it was a rhythm that made my skin crawl, a rhythm that seemed to echo deep inside my skull. 3 knocks, then silence, then 3 again. I stood there staring at the door, and the peephole seemed like an eye staring back at me. And I could not bring myself to look through it, because what if something was looking back, something not supposed to be here, something waiting for me? The air felt heavy, then like the house was sinking underwater. The silence was suffocating. I backed away step by step, but every floorboard betrayed me with a groan. I thought if I could just get to my bedroom lock, the door, bury myself under the blanket, it would pass. But when I reached the hallway, the sound followed. Knock, knock, knock. Not on the front door this time. No, it came from the side door near the kitchen, then from the back door leading to the yard, then from the window in the dining room. The sound traveling, circling like something outside was searching for a way in. I grabbed the phone, but the screen lit up and died again and again like the battery was drained, even though it had been charged. I pressed the power button until my thumb hurt, but nothing. There's no signal, no light, only the reflection of my own pale face in the black screen. The house seemed alive. Then the walls, breathing the shadows, stretching longer than they should. I could hear a whisper, but it was not words, just the sound of breath sliding across the glass of the windows. Too slow, too heavy to be wind. I told myself not to answer, not to look, but curiosity eats at the mind worse than fear. So I crept toward the dining room and lifted the curtain just an inch, not enough to show myself, not enough to be seen, but enough to glimpse the outside. There was nothing. The yard stretched out under the faint moonlight, the grass unmoving, the trees rigid, like statues. The world outside looked frozen, as if time had stopped, and yet the sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, from the window, I was standing beside, but there was no one there, no shape, no shadow, nothing to make that noise. I stumbled back, the curtain slipping from my hand, heart slamming in my chest, the clock still ticking each second, dragging longer than the last. It was 3:15. Now 15 minutes of this endless knocking, circling, searching, probing for weakness. I ran upstairs feet, pounding the steps faster than I thought possible, locked my bedroom door, pushed the dresser against it, sat on the floor with my back to the wall, but the knocking did not stop. It grew sharper, angrier, moving along the walls as if hands pressed against the house itself, rapping from every side like they knew I was trapped, like they wanted me to break first. I covered my ears, but it made no difference. The sound was inside my head, rattling my bones. The whispers grew stronger, words starting to form, but not in any language. I knew syllables scraping like rusted metal against glass. I whispered again, "Don't answer the door, don't answer, over and over until my voice cracked. Then it stopped, silence so sudden that it made my ears ring. I sat there shaking, afraid to breathe, afraid that any sound would start it all again. The silence stretched until I thought maybe it was over. Maybe it had gone. But the air still felt wrong, thicker than before, and then my phone lit up on its own, lying on the floor where I had dropped it. The screen glowed white, then black, then words appeared in jagged letters across it. "Open the door." I hurled the phone against the wall and it shattered, but the light remained, flickering faintly on the broken pieces, spelling the same words. "Open the door." I pressed myself against the wall, knees to my chest, eyes shut tight, whispering over and over that I would not open it, that I would never open it. And yet deep inside, I felt the pull, the urge to see who or what waited beyond that wood barrier. as if something was clawing inside my skull, urging me to obey. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the shards of my broken phone, glowing faintly with that cursed message, "Open the door." The words burned into my brain, pulsing with every throb of my heartbeat. I told myself I would not move. I would not give in. But the silence was worse than the knocking, because the silence made me think maybe it was waiting. Maybe it was listening. Then came the sound again, but not outside this time. It came from the stairs, a slow creak. One step, then another, like bare feet pressing into the wood and dragging just a little too long, each sound stretching into the darkness. I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from breathing too loud. The dresser against my door rattled as if something brushed past it, moving through the hallway. But how could that be? I had never opened the door. A smell drifted in, then faint at first, then stronger. A sour metallic tang like rust or blood like wet earth. After rain, the smell of something pulled from the ground, something that should have stayed buried. I thought of graves, thought of coffins, thought of bones. And the smell grew thicker until I gagged. The whispering started again, closer now. Clearer, sliding along the walls like voices pressed right against the wood. I strained to hear, but the words twisted each time I almost understood, like they shifted to keep their meaning hidden. But one phrase came through over and over, "Open the door. Open the door. Open the door." I shut my eyes, but shutting them only made it worse, because I could see it behind my lids. A shadow shape, tall and thin, its limbs bending wrong, its head cocked sideways, its mouth a crack, stretching too wide and whispering without lips moving. I forced my eyes open again, and the shape was gone, but the whisper stayed. I could not take it anymore. I shoved the dresser aside, fingers trembling on the knob, but I did not turn it. I only leaned my head against the door, listening, and the hallway on the other side was too quiet, like the house had been emptied of everything, even the air. Then the knob turned on its own. I staggered back, slamming into the wall as the door trembled under pressure. Something pushing from the other side, slow, deliberate. The wood creaking in protest. I shouted no over and over until my throat burned. But the door still moved, the gap widening inch by inch. I grabbed the edge, tried to hold it closed, but the force was too strong. It felt like the weight of the ocean pressing through the crack, and then it stopped. The door hung open, an inch no more, no less. Nothing moved beyond it, only darkness so thick it seemed solid. I thought maybe it was gone, maybe it had given up. But deep inside I knew better. The darkness was waiting, patient, certain I would come closer. My phone shards flickered again on the floor, glowing brighter than before, the words changing. This time it spelled out, "You already opened it." I looked at the door again, and the gap was wider now, though I had not touched it wide enough that I could see the hallway beyond, dim and twisted, like the walls had stretched, the shadows bending and curling like smoke. And I whispered to myself that it was not real, that it was a trick, but the gap widened with each breath. I stepped back too far and tripped against the bed, hit the floor, hard stars bursting in my vision. And when I looked up, the door was wide open, the hallway yawning like a throat, the shadows spilling into my room, crawling across the floor, reaching with long fingers that bent and split, like branches snapping. I scrambled to the window, tried to force it open, but it would not budge, no matter how hard I slammed my palms against it. The glass only showed my reflection pale and wide-eyed, but then the reflection blinked when I did not. The reflection smiled, its lips stretched into a jagged grin as black liquid dripped from its eyes. Its hand pressed against the glass from the other side, and then it knocked 3 times. "Knock, knock, knock," I screamed and staggered back. As the glass shivered, the reflection leaning closer, whispering the same words, "Open the door, open the door, open the door," and I realized it was not outside at all. It was already inside. It had been inside from the first knock. The shadows flooded the room faster than I could move, wrapping around my legs, around my arms, pulling me toward the mirror, my reflection laughing silently, its mouth opening wider and wider until it split across its face. And I felt myself falling into that darkness, sucked into a void colder than death itself. When I came to, I was standing in the hallway, but it was not my hallway. The walls stretched endlessly, twisting into shapes that made no sense. Doors lining either side, each one marked with a clock, all frozen at 3 o'clock. Every door identical, every door waiting. and the whispers filling the air telling me to choose one to open. One. I ran. But no matter how far I went, the hallway stretched longer doors on either side, repeating endlessly, the clocks ticking, now louder until they drowned every thought in my head. I covered my ears, but the sound came from inside me. At the end of the hall, I saw a final door taller than the rest. Black wood glistening like oil, the clock above it ticking. Not frozen, but moving forward second by second, closer to 3 o'clock. Again, I knew what it meant. I knew if I stood there until the clock struck 3, it would open on its own. And whatever waited on the other side would come for me. I turned to run, but behind me, the doors began to open one by one, and from each doorway, something stepped out. Shapes too wrong to name bodies. Bending wrong, faces shifting like wax and fire, all of them whispering in unison, "Open the door, open the door, open the door." I ran to the black door because there was nowhere else to go. I pressed my hands against it, screaming to be let out, screaming to wake up, screaming anything. But the door swung open on its own and I stumbled forward into darkness. I opened my eyes and I was back in my room, the dresser against the door. The phone whole again lying on the nightstand, the clock glowing 3 o'clock sharp. Like nothing had happened, but the words on the screen burned bright. "Open the door." And then the knocking began again.
Thank you for watching C&T Horror Stories. Please like and subscribe for more stories.